So I'm Rebecca Weitzel. I used to work here at Hilltop. Now I contract with Hilltop to kind of help with the wellness program and do fun things like this. I have been a personal trainer for 22, almost 23 years, and so I still do that. I just train clients very part-time now. Some of the clients I've had for 15 years, so I can't quite let them go. But you can imagine that over the years, they've aged. They've aged for, over 15 years. But I will tell you, because they've been very consistent with working out, this aged population, they're doing awesome. One of my guys is 83 years old, and he still does everything you can imagine. Hiking, biking, does his own yard work, does his own housework, gets on the roof. He's just very functional. And he didn't start really changing his life until he was about 55. He had a bypass surgery and ended up, he was a smoker, ate like crap, and changed his life at 55, and now, they're almost 30 years later, he's doing great. So, all that to say, it's not too late to make changes if that's something that you're looking to do. So, many of you sent questions. Raise your hand if you sent a question in, and I'll be answering your question today. Okay, great. So some of you probably sent questions, or other people probably sent questions that aren't here, so you're going to get to benefit from hearing what their question was and their answer. And then hopefully we'll have some time to go over any questions that you have as we come up. And go ahead and feel free to ask questions as they pop up, because some of these questions may lead to other questions too. So our first question, I've been doing the same workout routine for 5 years. Do I need to change it to be effective? All right, so what's your guess? Yes, yes. So, oh my goodness, Roxanne and I are like right in alignment, because it's the first thing I say. First, define effective, right? So this could mean a bunch of things to different people, right? If I need to change my routine to be effective, what might effective mean to people? What are some different, the person didn't supply a reason or what their goal was, so what might this mean if you had to guess? Or if you're here. Consistently?
Well, I mean the same routine every time.
Right. Right. And so if we're going to say, is this effective, are we saying helping me be stronger? Are we saying helping me stay the same? Are we saying, what are we saying? Did you have, is that kind of what you were going to say? Yeah.
Changes like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Changes, progress.
Exactly. Because if what you're defining effective is to stay the same, like I'm happy where I am, I'm doing great, then you can keep doing it, especially if your goal is just to stay healthy. So are you wanting to just maintain your current level of health and fitness level? If so, great. If you love it and you're doing it, then keep doing it. Because honestly, when it comes to exercise, health is number one. And the second thing is do something you will actually do. So for me, I hate to run. And I have been asked by friends over and over to train for marathons, and I just say, no, I don't really want to, because that means I have to run, and I don't really enjoy running. I think I could, and I do trail running, but running on the street or on a treadmill, forget about it. So do things you enjoy doing. I love hiking, so my husband and I hike all year round, rain, snow, shine, we hike. So you want to, first of all, ask that question. If it's to maintain, keep doing it, especially if you love to do it. If effective means lose weight, probably not effective, because, and I'll explain that here in a second. I'm just going to hold this up like this so I don't have to keep leaning down and miss the camera. What about to get stronger? Do you think doing the same thing for 5 years is going to help you get stronger? So that's right. Your body adapts to whatever you give it. So it doesn't take very long to adapt. And this is actually a good thing. This is your body responding, and it gets stronger. So once we stop giving it something that stresses it out, and presumably if you've been doing the same workout for 5 years, it's not stressing your body out anymore, then it doesn't have any reason to get stronger. So if that's your goal, then you do need to mix it up. Once your body's adapted, you'll plateau, and if you do less than what you've been doing, your fitness is actually going to decline. So that's a dirty little secret. When you start to exercise and work out, you can't stop. Don't stop, because what you've achieved will just slowly start to decline and you'll atrophy. And so all that hard work you put in over the years just goes away. So you have to keep doing it, and you have to keep doing more if you want to improve. So I like to think about it with this principle, the Goldilocks principle. So what you want to think about when it comes to exercise, if your goal is to improve your fitness, you need to find that sweet spot. Remember Goldilocks in the story? Not too soft, not too hard, just right. With exercise, you want something that challenges your body, that feels hard to do, but that isn't so hard that you either give up really quickly or your body just really can't achieve it. And so then you really don't make any change there either. So you want to find that sweet spot. That's how you'll continue to improve. So if you want to continue improving your fitness, you've got to find ways to mix it up. If you want to stay where you are and you love what you're doing, keep doing it. All right, question number 2. How do I gain weight in a healthy way and buff up? Also, should I drink protein shakes? Did anybody in here ask that question? Yeah, all right, Roxanne. So I love this question. And it's a really interesting one. First, I'm going to start with that question about protein shakes. I kind of mixed them up, and I don't know that you asked the protein shake question, but waste of money. My 23-year-old son, he's 6'4.5", and he weighs probably 210, and he's huge. And he used to waste his money on protein shakes, and I kept telling him, what are you doing? You're a college student, you can't afford this, it's really not helping you. But he just was not convinced. Well, finally, now he's graduated and he's a little older, he's smarter. He's eliminated protein shakes, and guess what? No change except in his pocketbook. They're a waste of money, and there's actually a study that came out last year, I think, that talked about the junk that's actually in there. So a lot of them have a lot of sugar. A lot of them have up to like 1,200 calories, and even if you're trying to bulk up, you don't want to over-consume calories to that extent, and you're getting more protein than you really need. So a waste of money. Also, remembering this 80-20 rule, which is spend 80% of your time doing the 20% of the things that we know actually work. So a lot of times people get, bogged down in the weeds with trying to like tweak every little thing. If you are an elite athlete, then you can start worrying about, how should I lift this weight just precisely, just right? And how should I, should I train in the morning? Should I train at night? Some of these things can make a difference at that level, but they're so marginal that the average person does not need to spend their time even worrying about them. We need to think about the 20% of the things that actually make 80% of the difference. So one of the things to keep in mind when you're thinking about that 80-20 rule is just simply, it's hard work to build muscle. Plain and simple, and especially as women, we don't have the level of testosterone. It's a total myth that you're going to bulk up as a woman if you lift weights, because it is super, super hard to put on muscle. It is almost impossible to bulk up unless you're doing other types of supplements that we won't talk about here today. So here's what we need to think about. These basic things. You need to lift heavy weights to put on muscle. If you are lifting a weight 15, 20 times, that's great. It's good for endurance. It's good for bringing that heart rate up, but it's not going to actually put muscle on your body. So you need to be lifting heavy weights, 80 to 85% of your maximum. How do you know what that is? Well, it's probably best to figure that out with a trainer who can help you, because to find your maximum, you need to be lifting heavy weights. So you want to have somebody kind of watching you, make sure you use good form. But a good rule of thumb is if you can do about 4 to 8 reps and then you're done, it's probably about 80 to 85%. If you're doing more than that, you're just getting into endurance, which is different types of muscle fiber in the muscles. And so you're not building muscle. So heavy weight, fewer repetitions. That doesn't mean lightweight, fewer repetitions. That last rep needs to be hard. then here's an interesting thing. You've got to put time between when you train a muscle and when you train it again. That rest period, that's when you actually build muscle. So the theory goes that when you lift weights, especially heavy weights, you're actually sustaining little micro tears in the muscle. And those micro tears heal over, and that healing process is what actually builds muscle tissue. So you can imagine if you're lifting weights day after day after day with the same muscle group, super heavy, you're not giving your body time to rest, you're actually working against yourself. You really need that rest period for those muscle groups. And there's a question later on that asks about how to kind of do weight training, and I'll go over some ideas there. You want to stick with simple exercises. So nowadays you can go and Google all kinds of fun things to do. Those are fun things. I do fun things with my clients now because they have different goals. Dylan teaches classes and we do all kinds of fun things in classes. But if your goal is to build muscle, stick with some of the most basic moves. Pushing, so push-ups, chest press, pulling, pull-ups, lat pulls, and squats. Those are some of the best things you can do to build muscle. And then when you are looking at your calorie intake, you need to make sure you're eating enough to support not only what you're burning during the day, but your body's process of building muscle. Now, a lot of people go too far on this and then get frustrated because they're also adding fat to their body. And the more fat we have on our body, the less muscle we build because we have more estrogen when we have more fat. So more fat, more estrogen, less testosterone. We want less estrogen, so we want less fat. So we don't want to add fat when we're trying to build muscle. So you want to just add about 10% more calories. You can get that from protein, but you don't need a protein shake at 1,200 calories. So for most people, especially most women, let's say on average your needs are about 2,000 calories for the day. What would 10% of that be for those who know math? 200. Just 200 calories. That's not that much more. So make sure you're getting enough. And there are some calculations to get more specific on what your needs are. And if you ever want help with that, you can just email me. It's based on really your height and weight and muscle mass. Now, the truth is, if your goal is to really get that cut look, right? Is that anybody in here's goal, to get that cut look? Okay, yes, okay, that's good, that's okay. The key there is you have to have low body fat. I mean, I'm cut under some layers. You just can't see it. So while I'm really strong, I don't have that ripped look because I'm not willing to do what it takes to get super low body fat. I like my life too much and I like cookies on Sunday. So you just have to know what the trade-off is. To get super low body fat and see those cuts, you have to eat super clean, and that is just how it goes. Okay. You also want to make sure that when you are cutting calories, and this goes for everybody, even if you're just wanting to lose body fat but not caring about building muscle, you don't want to cut too much too soon. You only want to go about 20 to 25% of your intake, your current intake, so that you don't freak your body out. So if you really want to just lose body fat, slow and steady with just a slight cut is the best way to do it. Okay, well, before I do that, any questions that have come up to this point with those two?
What is HIIT?
Oh, yes, I didn't go over that. So HIIT exercises, we're going to go over that a little bit more later, but it stands for High Intensity Interval Training. So in order to keep muscle on your body and burn fat, to maximize those two things at the same time, one of the best ways you can do that is, of course, strength training, but also doing higher intensity for shorter periods of time when you're doing cardio exercise. So instead of, getting on the treadmill for 2 hours at 3 miles an hour, you want to get on the treadmill and do some short bursts of really hard exercise, and that kind of wakes the body up a little bit, builds some fast twitch fibers, which help that metabolism. All right, I have arthritis. How do I modify jumping and running in my workout to avoid strains and sprains? Interesting. Even if you don't have arthritis, if you just have aches and pains, if you have achy knees, achy ankles, Do you think that somebody with arthritis should jump or run?
Not right away.
Ah, Valerie, not right away is the key. Exactly. So, high impact exercises actually, there's a recent study that showed that they can actually be beneficial to people with arthritis, because what it does is it stimulates the growth of new cartilage. And as you know, if you have arthritis, new cartilage is a good thing. But you don't want to just jump into it, literally and figuratively. You want to start slow. So how do you do that? First, you really need to start with strength training the muscles around whatever joints have arthritis. So let's just say in this case, it's the knees or even the feet. You really need to, before you start jumping or running, strengthen all the muscles in your legs, your calves, and even the muscles in your feet. There's some things you can do, like with your, sitting down, there's a towel in front of you, scrunching the towel forward. So having strong muscles that help stabilize the joints can really help alleviate some of the impact once you start doing impact. Does that make sense? So strong muscles first before you ever start running or jumping. Then once you're cleared by your doctor, you need to make sure that you're using proper form. So the same son that I have, it's 23 and 6'4.5" and really handsome. He's also a little bit awkward. When he was, I don't know, 5 years old, I think, I took him to the doctor and I said, I don't know what it is. I don't know if something is like orthopedically wrong or if he's just really heavy on his feet. But when he runs, I don't know, it just doesn't look right. So he did all these tests and he took him outside and had him run and, came back in, did more tests. And the doctor says, I think I like your diagnosis. I think he's just heavy on his feet. And he's gotten a lot better and he loves to play basketball. So he's been playing a lot of basketball and he's been really trying hard to be able to dunk, which he can now. But in doing so, he's now gotten like 3 stress fractures because he's landing so heavily on his feet. So when he was here last visiting from Fort Collins, we really worked on and really talked about how to land softly. If you hear your feet when you're running, if that's what you hear, or when you're jumping, that's not good. You really don't want to do that. That's putting a lot of strain on the skeleton and on your connective tissues. You really want to absorb a lot of that shock by using those strong muscles you've already developed and by thinking landing softly. So barely hear those landings. So if you are running, even if you don't have arthritis, if you are running or jumping in your regular routine, listen for how it sounds. If you are making a lot of noise, you need to stop right now. And you need to see a trainer, or you need to see a physical therapist and make sure you're doing it right. A lot of damage when we do things incorrectly. Yes?
So when you land, are you supposed to land on your tippy toes first? Or?
Kind of on the ball of your feet. That will usually help you absorb the impact. But you're exactly right. If you land flat-footed, where your heel hits at the exact same time as the front part of your foot, that's when you're going to feel the most impact. And same thing with running. A lot of people kind of run flat-footed, or they try to reach way out in front of themselves with their feet. When your heels are slapping, that's usually an indication that you're doing it incorrectly and hurting yourself. Any other questions about that? Okay, then you want to start small, just like Valerie said. So doctors proved you know what you're doing. Just start adding, 10 to 20 jumps really quietly in your office, during your break, twice a day. Just start adding that. And I would recommend that to everybody who thinks they want to start running or incorporating high intensity interval training. Work up to it by doing that 2 times a day, 10 to 20 jumps per day. All right. Next question. When weight training, does it matter if I alternate between upper and lower body, arms and legs? So was it anybody in here that had that question? Yeah? Okay. So is that kind of how you've just trained or been told?
I heard that you should do like upper body one day, and then the next day do legs.
Yeah.
But I only go every other day.
Okay.
So
That's okay.
I'll do like something with my arms, and something with my legs.
Yep.
Something with my arms,
Yep.
something with my legs.
Okay.
And my son, who took a weight class, was
Yeah.
like, Mom, you're not doing it. You're not going to do it that way. And I'm like, well, I'm resting because I'm resting in between.
Yep. Yep.
You know, because if I'm not going every day,
Exactly.
if I was going every day,
Yeah.
then I would want to, maybe do it different.
Right. So, just for people who can't hear in the recording, she's saying that, she's trying to do the rest in between. So she's doing, upper body one day, then maybe skipping a day, then lower body. So she's doing that part right? We already learned that you need that rest period in between. So that's great. So there's really different ways to do this. So first, you do have to figure out for yourself how many days of the week and which days of the week are you actually going to get to the gym. Because that's going to help determine what we call a split, how you're going to divide up those muscle groups. Because as we learned in a couple of questions ago, do we want to do the same muscle group twice in, back to back? No. So we do want to split it up so that there's a rest period. And that rest period should be at least 24 hours in between. So you shouldn't, especially if you're training sufficiently, work your chest on Monday and then do it again on Tuesday and then do it again on Thursday or Wednesday. You want to split things up. But if you're only going to train twice in 1 week, what are you going to do? How do you get full body? Yeah, full body. Because the thing that you want to try to do, and this is for everybody, even just for health, is you want to try to hit all the major muscles in your body at least twice a week. So if you're only going twice a week, it has to be the whole body both times, and it shouldn't be on consecutive days. So here are some really popular ways that you can split. So we have the 3-day full split. So if you answered this question and it was 3 days, here's how you could do it. You could do the full body 3 times, and you could go like Monday, do your workout, Tuesday off, Wednesday, do your workout, Thursday off, Friday do your workout, and then off for the weekend. That would be a 3-day full body split. The 2-day full body split is exactly what we're talking about, but this time you want to just kind of distribute, if you can, those full body workouts in your week. So now you might do your workout on Monday, skip Tuesday, Wednesday, do it again on Thursday, and then skip 3 days. So skip 2 and then skip 3. Instead of doing, Monday, Wednesday, and then nothing for the rest of the week. A little bit better if you can distribute it that way. Here's a 4-day upper, lower. So this would be kind of what you're talking about, Renee.
Actually, I do the 3 days.
Do you? Okay. So 4-day upper. Now, what if you can go 4 times, but you don't have time to do your whole body? This would be a good way to do it. Just spend 20 to 30 minutes doing upper body Monday, lower body Tuesday, take Wednesday off, or do cardio. Then upper body again, lower body again, then off. Make sense? Is it starting to make sense? We're hitting all the major muscles in our body twice a week. Here's a 3-day upper lower. So same thing, except it gets a little more confusing. If you only have 3 days to do it, then your week may start out with upper body, and then the following week it starts out with lower body. So week 1 you're getting upper body 3 times. Week 2, or actually 2 times, sorry, and week 2 you're getting it twice. So it averages out. That's what that one does. And then lastly, this may be what your son does, because this is a really popular bodybuilding routine, which is chest, shoulders, and triceps 1 day. All of those are pushing muscles. They're pressing muscles. And then the next day, you're going to do pulling muscles, because you didn't just work those. So now I can do my back and biceps, the things that pull. And then maybe I'll take a day off, because my body's worked pretty hard for 2 days. And then the next day I'll do my legs and my abs. And then I'll just repeat that cycle. The thing about this one, so this is the one my husband does, and he's 50 and he still looks awesome. He doesn't care that, chest, shoulders, and triceps shows up on a Monday. He's just going to do chest, shoulders, and triceps on the next rotation, whenever that happens to be. So as long as you're okay with that in your head, that it's not going to sync up with a day of the week, it's fine to do it that way. All right? Make sense? So lots of choices. Really first depends on how often are you actually going to the gym and how much time do you have when you go. Denise.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Because earlier you mentioned, like, I think you were on the 4-day.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say that on your off day you could do, instead of being off, you could do cardio?
Yeah, so when we're saying off, what we're saying is don't do any strenuous weight training.
Okay.
But you can still do some cardio that's getting your heart and lungs worked without straining muscles, let's say. Yeah.
So when you're talking, I'm just trying to, because I was on a rotation of, I think it was a 4-day.
4-day.
Yeah, because we don't go Wednesdays. And so, but I wasn't seeing any change, and I stopped going because that happens. It's been over a month.
So 4 days, Wednesdays were off, and
Yeah,
then
and I wasn't
you
doing
weren't
cardio
seeing any
though.
change. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there could be a couple of things. And when you're saying you weren't seeing any change, what weren't you seeing that you were
Actually,
expecting?
I was gaining weight instead of lowering.
Okay, so weight loss was what you were looking for.
Yeah.
So we're going to actually address that issue when we talk about another question, because that's a really good question. And it's something that kind of requires some reframing if you're trying to lift weights and build muscle. Okay? So I need help jump starting my metabolism. What are the best exercises to build strength and lose weight? So we kind of already hinted at this when we talked about the high intensity interval. And of course now we know strength building, you want to be lifting weights, right? So weight and strength training, muscle is key. Muscle is key to a metabolism. The main reason our metabolisms slow down as we age isn't because we're getting older. There is something to that, because now that I'm 45, I have to admit there's something to that. But really what it is we're losing muscle. If we're not trying to keep the muscle we have on our bodies or trying to add more to it, we're losing about a half to a pound, 1 pound every year. Doesn't seem like very much. But when you go from 20 to 40, how many pounds of muscle have I lost if I haven't done any strength training? Yeah, up to maybe 20 pounds of muscle. That has completely changed your metabolism, because muscle burns about 11 times more calories just while you're sitting here listening to me than a pound of fat. So maybe your weight hasn't changed, but maybe you've noticed your waist size has over the years. That's because you've put on fat, you've lost muscle, and the more muscle you lose, the easier it is to put on fat, and it's a recipe for weight gain and not having, you know, really the strength and ability that we had at one time. So really important. So think about some of those ideas we talked about in terms of those splits if you're going to start adding weight training to your routine. And you can also do things like this morning I did my 6 o'clock in the morning yoga class. It's super hard. Hot yoga, don't recommend just jumping into it, but like a power yoga class, boy, it's a lot of strength training. There's Pilates, there's other ways you can strengthen your body without just, you know, lifting weights. Then that high intensity interval training. There are about as many ways to do this as you can think of. So some common ways would be take what you're already doing. Let's say you already go for a walk for 30 minutes every day. To turn that into a high intensity interval training workout, all you have to do is go, okay, from here to that next mailbox, I'm gonna sprint. If you've been, you know, building up to the ability to run. If you can't run yet, then you're just going to speed walk, or maybe you're going to do some walking lunges to that mailbox. You're going to do something that's hard for a few seconds. Those seconds can either be timed or it can be just like a visual like that. If you want to start getting into timed intervals, you can do things like work really hard for 30 seconds, rest for 60. Work really hard for 30 seconds, rest for 60. There's a really common one that a man from Japan came up with called Tabata training. He was the coach for the Olympic soccer team in Japan. And what they developed was this interval of 20 seconds as hard as you can, 10-second break. 20 seconds as hard as you can, 10-second break. 8 times for a total of 4 minutes. Go try that. because it sounds easy for 4 minutes, but it is super hard, especially if you truly are going as hard as you can. That's key. It should be where you could not go more than 20 seconds. So test that one out if you really want to add some metabolism boosting workout to your routine. And then you can do things too, like weight training circuits where you include maybe some jumping. Do you still teach cardio chisel and stuff? So like at Crossroads, there's a class that they teach, that Dylan teaches, called cardio chisel, and they'll lift weights for a little bit, and then maybe they'll do a series of jumping jacks or a series of squat jumps, something that really gets the heart rate up. So that's a great way to not only burn a lot of calories while you're working out, but to boost your overall metabolism over time. Does that make sense? So this kind of goes all the way back to that first question of, if I'm doing the same workout for 5 years, is it still effective? Well, if I want to improve my fitness, is what we're defining effective as, here are some easy ways you can just change that up where you don't have to completely change your routine, but just add some little spice to it. Make it a little hard for those little intervals. Add a little bit more weight than what you've been doing. And now you've changed your workout without really having to change your workout. All right. Mathematically, shouldn't working out eventually result in weight loss even if I continue to eat the same amount? Denise is saying no. Okay, here is the truth. Calories in and calories out, it is an equation and it is the truth. There's just a lot of factors that go into it. So here's the thing about exercise. Principle one is that we need to stop thinking about exercise as a means to lose weight. Exercise is a means to stay alive and have a healthy life. And that is what exercise is for. Our bodies are designed to move. So if we're sitting around day in and day out, we're actively dying. That's what we're doing. If we're moving and we're active, that is what our bodies want to do. We are living, and that's why we do it, not to lose weight. So can we all agree? We're no longer going to exercise to lose weight. We're just going to do it because we need to do it. It's like brushing your teeth. If you want to keep your teeth, you brush your teeth. You don't do it to lose weight. You can do it to keep your teeth. If you want to keep your health, you're going to keep exercising. So we've distilled it down to that. Next is, it's really hard to outrun a bad diet. How easy is it to eat 2 donuts when your supervisor brings them in on Friday? Is that pretty easy? Do you know how many calories the 2 donuts is?
It depends which donut.
On average, Denise. Yeah, 2. It could be. No, it's true. There's a lot of variation. Yeah.
Krispy Kreme donut actually has less calories.
Because it has more air.
Yes.
Yes.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes. So like the cake donuts have the most because they're dense. Anytime there's a lot of air and water in your food, fewer calories. So that's good. But the more dense the food, the more calories. So let's say on average a donut's 200 calories. So you eat 2, that's 400 calories. What do you have to do to just break even with exercise?
Run 9 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it costing? Yeah, so that's just to break even. So if you're trying to lose weight, you need to run more than 9 miles. You need to do a heck of a lot more than that. So if your exercise is just walking for 30 to 40 minutes a day, that's awesome. Keep doing it. It's great for your health. Do you think that cancels out 2 donuts? Not even close. So we have this real disconnect, and what happens when we exercise is we get this little halo over our heads, and we think, oh, I'm so good, I was so good today. Like today I went and did my hot yoga, and I had to have sweated out 1,000 calories. It feels like I did. I really didn't. So then we go and we say, well, now I deserve 2 donuts, or now I deserve to get to go to Taco Bell for lunch. That's how we do the calculations in our heads. So for the person asking this question, theoretically, yes, over time, if you're exercising, eating exactly the same, you probably will lose some weight very, 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 very slowly. But theoretically and actually are two different things. And what happens is when we exercise, a lot of times our appetite goes up a little. And so even if you're eating an extra 200 calories, which could just be like 3 more bites of your macaroni and cheese, you've canceled that out. So really, when we're talking about weight loss, it's all about, it's 90% about the food. Because that's the thing we can control the most and the thing we can cut back on. You just, like I said, can't outrun a bad diet. Now, I took clients and we hiked Ptarmigan Mountain a few weeks ago. It's by Silverthorne. And it was a 13-mile hike and it was amazing. It was awesome. And I figured it took us about 6 hours. And I figured we probably burned a couple thousand calories. Do you think we lost weight? No, because we came back and we had margaritas. We could justify those margaritas, but that just basically canceled out all the calories we burned. So you could see exercise, super important for health, not your best strategy for weight loss. But you're still going to do it, no matter what happens on the scale, right? Principle 3, think of fat loss, not weight loss. So this kind of gets at the question, Denise, that you had earlier. If you're measuring success only by looking at the number on the scale, if you're lifting weights and lifting heavy weights, you're probably not seeing the whole picture because you're probably gaining some muscle, hopefully losing a little bit of body fat, and so it might be net neutral, or it might be you're gaining weight. Now, if you're gaining 5 pounds in a week, that's not muscle. So, you know, people who delude themselves sometimes saying that, you know, I started lifting weights and lifting my 5-pound dumbbells and I'm 10 pounds heavier, but I'm sure it's all muscle. No. But there is some truth to that. So you need to look at other things. In fact, I don't even let my clients have a goal of weight loss anymore. They have to come up with something else. And we'll measure, I'll look at their weight just because I want to see that number and we can use that to do body fat. But it's not the goal and it's not what we're focused on. So look at circumferences. That'll be really an easy way for you to tell, measuring your waist, measuring your hips, measuring your thigh, measuring your chest. Just look at those things over time. That doesn't lie. How your clothes fit. That kind of tells you what's going on, right? We know. Right? So I don't know, the scale, especially if you've had an unhealthy relationship with it all your life, like if it goes up 1 pound one day and you have a terrible day, just don't step on it. Seriously, it's not helpful. So find some other things that you don't have such an unhealthy relationship with to measure your outcomes. And then principle 4, exercise, while it may not be great for weight loss, it is awesome for helping you maintain your weight. And some of that goes back to what we talked about with muscle and how important it is. If you lose muscle over time because you're not exercising, your metabolism's going down and you're going to gain weight. So exercise really helps you maintain it. It also gives you that buffer, right? So, okay, I did eat the 2 donuts and yeah, I am capable of running 9 miles, so I'm going to do it to balance it out. If you're not capable, then you don't have that buffer zone. You really have to stick within this, small range of calories in order to not gain weight. Does that make sense? Any questions pop up about that? Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, good. Whenever I start exercising, and this is the last question that I have that I'm going to go over, I do okay for a little while and then I stop. How do I make it a permanent habit? Has this ever happened to anybody? You started, yeah, you got going for a while, doing great, and then you stopped. You get bored? Yeah, bored. What are the reasons why people stop?
I get tired.
Get tired?
Really, really tired.
So.
Because I used to do 6 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we went from 6 in the morning to 5:30 in the morning, I'm like, yeah, no.
So maybe you didn't hit the Goldilocks principle. You didn't find that sweet spot, right? What are other reasons people quit? Get discouraged. Right. So again, if we've defined success as that number's on the scales dropping 5 pounds every week, well, yeah, it gets discouraging because that's not going to happen more than maybe the first week or 2, and that's mostly water. So not super helpful. So if we're thinking about how to stick with this habit of exercise, here are some tips. The first is less is more when you're starting out. So maybe your ultimate goal is to run a marathon, and that's awesome, and I think people should have goals like that they're striving for and they dream about. But less is more starting out. So if you're not exercising at all right now, but you have the goal to run a marathon a year from now, what should you start doing now? Dawn wants to run a marathon. I can see it in her face. She's going, never. Me either, girl. I'm not either. Who's running a marathon a year from now? Maybe that was the wrong goal to pick for this group. How about climb a 14er with me next summer? Ooh, yeah. Okay, what would you need to start doing now? Just walking. If you're doing nothing right now, walking's a great place to start. And walking 5 minutes every day. That might sound ridiculous because you know, well, Rebecca, the American Heart Association says you need to at least 30 minutes 5 times a week. Yes. But if you're doing nothing, is 5 minutes better than 0? Yes. But we create these false dichotomies in our head, black or white thinking, where we say, oh, if I can't dedicate 30 minutes today, then I'm going to do nothing. Oh, that gets us in trouble all the time. So what we're trying to do is we want to figure out what's the goal and then back way, way, way up, because there are some habits that you need to establish well before, you know, the habit of running 3 times a week. There are lots of things that need to start to happen, and so it really requires some thinking. What habits do you need to establish before you even start exercising, for example? Maybe it's packing your gym bag. So maybe you have this goal that, okay, I really want to hit the gym 5 times a week after work. Well, in order to do that, what needs to happen? Probably you shouldn't go home. Yeah, you shouldn't go home. I'll tell you right now, if you're going to work out after work, don't go home, because you'll come up with a million excuses as to why you don't need to work out. So maybe the habit you need to get into is just packing your bag. So maybe for 2 weeks, you don't even let yourself work out. Maybe for 2 weeks, you just pack your bag and stick it in the car. Because you need to develop that habit. We jump over these other habits that are essential ingredients to the ultimate habit we want to get. So really, think about it. What are the habits I need? If it's just putting on my shoes or setting out my clothes at night so they're right there when I wake up in the morning to go to that 6 a.m. class, that's a habit. You can start out just by setting out your clothes and looking at them. Good job, me. And then you can celebrate the success of having set out your clothes before you even start working out. It sounds ridiculous, but I promise you it's one of the reasons why you're not succeeding when you try to just go all the way to the end. You need to back up and figure out what needs to happen first. Then you need to set ridiculous goals. So kind of like the 5-minute walk. I'm serious about this. Our brains, they don't care whether we climbed the 13-mile ptarmigan peak or went and walked for 5 minutes. As long as we feel like we met the goal, we are so excited and we get the little dopamine hit in the brain, and it's that dopamine hit that keeps us doing something. So you want to feel successful, so you need to set the goal to where no reasonable person could say, I don't have time for that, or I can't do that. So could any reasonable person who has 2 functioning legs say they don't have time in the day for 1 5-minute walk? No. So that's really what it needs to start out. That ridiculously small goal that you can feel successful and then build on it. Because success builds success. When you feel like a failure, like Roxanne was saying, people quit because they feel like, failed, you stop. So we're gonna make sure that we can't fail because the goal is so easy. All right, tip 4. As you solidify your habits, you want to really stop and reflect on them. Like, oh my gosh, I have set my gym clothes out and I have put them on and I have worked out almost every day for the last 4 weeks. That is super cool. Wow, if I'm doing that, I must really be a person who gets up at 6 a.m. and works out. Wow, I'm that kind of person. That's what's really going to make your habits stick, is where you start to identify as a person who does the thing you really want to do. Not a person who's faking it, not a person who, I'm not really an exerciser, but here I go, I'm going to try. when we have that disconnect between how we see ourselves and what we're doing, we're never really going to embrace it and make it part of our lives. It needs to become who we are. So think about what it is you're missing. Think about what it is you want to start doing, and start thinking of yourself as a person who does that. And take time to give yourself kudos. If you're participating in the wellness program, that's what really how we've designed it, is at the end of each quarter, you're going to reflect on your goal. You know, if you were perfect, not perfect, that's okay, as long as you stop and reflect on how it went and start to incorporate it into your identity.
So, Rebecca,
Yeah.
it just occurred to me
Mhm.
that I kind of had kind of the opposite of that,
Yeah.
where as a young person I was an athlete.
Uh-huh.
And then I kept thinking I was an athlete, but I wasn't.
Oh, I see.
So now
I'm,
you know, kind of that opposite.
Yeah.
You think you're an athlete, but you're really not anymore, and you need to get back to that.
Right.
That's kind of the opposite thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. So she's saying that if, you know, it can kind of work in the other direction, where if I was this thing at one time, a lot of football players, you know, who now weigh 350 pounds, are kind of that way, like they still think they're a football player. But now you're not doing the thing that syncs up with that identity. And I think that's another time to really reflect. So you just reflected, that's the moment where now you can change it. Because we have the desire, just as human beings, to really align our behavior with our values and who we think we are. And when we're out of alignment, we don't feel very good about that. So you've actually created, you know, you've moved past half the battle. You already identify as an athlete. Now the question is, all right, what do I need to start doing that aligns with that? Yeah, because I am one. I know I am one inside. So now I just need to align my behavior to match that value, match that identity. Yeah. Okay, any other questions that popped up?
I had one. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's relevant. When you were talking about the full body exercise,
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to physical therapy for my knee, and she suggested to not do the only legs, only upper body, to do the full body.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, would you do kind of like, you know, when you do legs, you do 4 exercises of legs, and that's it. Like, do you recommend cutting back, like 2?
When you're doing full body,
like, yeah,
do you do multiple exercises for every single muscle group and spend 3 hours in the gym? No, because nobody's actually going to spend 3 hours in the gym, probably. So that's a really good question. If you're trying to do a full body workout, which again, great for beginners. If you haven't been doing strength training at all, a great way to start is just pick 2 or 3 days and do full body workouts on non-consecutive days. Try to do exercises that incorporate multiple muscle groups at the same time. So I'm going to go out of the camera for a second. If I do a push-up, what muscles do you think are working?
Arms and stomach.
Arms, stomach, some back, chest, yep, triceps, shoulders, core, yeah. So lots of muscle groups I'm hitting with just that one exercise. Same thing, pull up. So we call these multi-joint movements. If more than one joint is moving at the same time, you know more than one muscle is working at the same time. A squat, same thing. Am I working just one thing? Am I bending just one joint? I'm bending hips, I'm moving my knees, I'm even moving some ankle. So I know I'm working more than one muscle at a time. I'm working quads, hamstrings, glutes, even a little bit of calf, especially if I add a jump to it. So you can really become efficient with doing those full body workouts by choosing exercises where you're hitting more than one thing. If you're just sitting down on a machine, you're probably only working about 1, maybe 2 as a secondary mover, muscle groups at a time. So a really efficient way to work out is to get away from the machines, do even, you know, some of those calisthenic type things I just showed you, and do work with a trainer or somebody, a professional, just to at least get that technique and form down. Otherwise, machines are good, but then you do want to hit every major muscle at least just once. Yeah, it just may take longer. Any other questions?